Welcome, my friends, to the first episode of Ways of Teacher Training. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about how to start an input session. And I believe the topic of this episode is very important because, again, some teacher trainers, when they're delivering the workshops, all what they do is that they just get in there and they start talking about their sessions without any introduction. Well, in this episode, we're going to tell you about 4 things you need to do when you are starting your input session. Now, the first thing is link your input session to your timetable. And when I say a timetable here, I mean that this workshop, this input session, is part of a teacher training course. And as long as it is a part of a teacher training course, then it has to be linked to the sessions before and the sessions after. Now, the second thing is to tell your candidates, your trainees, why this session is generally important. And when I say generally important, I mean for real life. How can they make use of this session in reality? And then you move from that to step number 3, which is how this session is important for this course. Then after that, you would start telling your candidates about the session aims or objectives. So again, 4 things. Number 1, linking your session to the timetable. Number 2, telling your candidates why this session is generally important, right, like for reality. And number 3, telling your candidates why the session is important on the course. And finally, going through the objectives of your session. Now the question is, do I have to follow like these 4 in order? Well, it's preferable that you follow this order. However, it's not a must. Like there is no harm if you started, by telling your candidates why this session is important specifically on this course, and then you start talking about why it's generally important. It's not a sin, but what we prefer is actually the framework I told you about. However, it's not a big deal. Now, another question that many trainers ask me is, what if we're delivering an input session but not as a part of a course? It's just, an input session in a conference or a symposium. It's just a standalone input session or a standalone workshop. And I say, then there will be no need to link the session to the timetable because there is no timetable, okay? And there is no need to talk about why this session is important on a course because there is no course. So what you will start with is why this session is important, generally speaking, and then the objectives of the session, and then you go on. So that's what you need to do. Now let's see some examples from some of my input sessions, and let's see how I actually covered these 4 points in my session at the very beginning. Let's go. Okay, my friends, how's everything? Good?
Yeah.
Lovely?
Great.
You fine? Okay, wonderful. So first, let me tell you about this session. This session is actually about authentic material, using authentic material and culture. Okay, so using authentic material and culture, both of them together, right? So now this session is generally important because, again, in reality, you will need to use authentic material, right, from time to another. You will need to go to YouTube, pick something, or go to the internet, pick a passage, build a lesson on it. So that's something that you will do on a daily basis. You also need to bear in mind the cultural differences between students. Also, when you're designing your own lessons, you've got to bear this in mind. The session also is important for this course because, again, it's very important when you're delivering a teaching practice, okay, whether in this level or higher levels, that you bear in mind also. So you need to choose, okay, from the culture, what is appropriate for your students and avoid what is inappropriate for them as well, right? Good. Now, this session, the reason why it comes at the very end is because we know now that after the course is over, you'll be out there into the market, right? And then you might not be teaching in Egypt all the time. You might end up teaching in a Gulf country, teaching in another Arab country. I mean, who knows, maybe teaching in different parts of the world. Then you need to bear in mind the culture of the country you're teaching in, and also read a bit about this before choosing authentic material, right? Good. Now, what are our aims of this session? Now, aim number one is to raise your awareness of the importance of culture in choosing authentic material. Aim number two is to show you how dangerous it can be if you choose something without checking whether it's appropriate for your students or not. Easy peasy lemon squeezy? Good. Okay, right, let me tell you about this session. This session is called Modals. So it's a language analysis session, right? And again, the reason why we're going to deliver this session now is because we think that modals is a tricky area of English language, and you will need to teach it also at different stages and also for different kinds of students. Like there is no course book without modals, right? And the problem that many English teachers find them confusing. So if English teachers find modals confusing, then, I mean, of course, that would be a tricky area for students. So this session is important for what you will do in reality after the course. Because again, as I said, that will be part of what you would encounter on a daily basis, right? It is important on a course like that, if you are going to teach modals on the course, then you will need to write a language analysis sheet in your lesson plan. Then you would need to know or to have information about modals when you're writing the language analysis sheet. And also when you're presenting modals as part of your teaching. Okay, so there are two aims in this session. Aim number one is to show you how modals are presented in different course books. And aim number two is to deal with 5 tricky areas related to modals. Now let me tell you about this session, right? Now, this session is called How to Teach Beginners, right? How to teach beginners. And again, previously we studied, the frameworks of English language teaching. Okay, those frameworks related to systems and those frameworks related to skills. We talked generally about teaching adults, right? But this time we're not talking about teaching any kind of adults. We're talking about true beginners in this one. And we're talking about a language framework. We're stressing on that framework one more time, right? Now, the importance of this session is that out there in reality, after the course is over, you might come across a true beginner, and then you will have to deal with that true beginner and teach him English. Now, how would you do that? And how do we teach true beginner classes? Okay, so that's something that you might encounter in reality. And also we need to introduce a framework that would help you do this job in reality. Now, also for this course, okay, it is very important that you understand the framework that we follow when we're teaching true beginners, because this is something that you can also integrate in your teaching practice, and also you might need it for also higher studies, okay, in higher levels of English language teaching. Now, what are the aims of this session? Well, number one is to raise your awareness of how you should deal with true beginners in the English classrooms. So that's number one. Number two is to show you how we can teach true beginners using the target language and without using their first language, even when they don't know the English letters. We can still teach them English in English. Number 3, we want also to show you the framework that would work with teaching true beginners and introduce its stages and rationals. So, are you ready? So, my friends, as you saw, in these 3 examples I gave you here, most of the time I tried to cover these 4 areas: how the session is linked to the timetable, how the session is important generally speaking, how the session is important specifically on a course, and the objectives of the sessions. So, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this first episode of Ways of Teacher Training. Thank you so much. And don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Remember that this encourages me to continue. Bye-bye.